Late nights on the road can be a lonely experience for a truck driver. The hum of the engine becomes a constant companion, and the darkness outside the windshield stretches on endlessly. But on one fateful overnight drive, the solitude I had grown accustomed to transformed into a nightmare that would forever haunt my thoughts. It began with a flicker of movement at the edge of my vision, fleeting and ephemeral. I dismissed it as a trick of tired eyes and the play of shadows, chalking it up to the weariness of the long journey. But as the hours passed, the sightings grew more frequent, more distinct. Figures, ethereal and indistinct, seemed to materialize out of thin air, standing silently by the side of the road. They lingered in the darkness, their forms shrouded in a haze of uncertainty. Some appeared as mere outlines, while others possessed a haunting clarity, their features etched into my memory. I rubbed my eyes and blinked repeatedly, hoping to dispel the mirages that danced on the periphery of my vision. But each time I looked, the figures remained, their presence undeniable. They were the specters of the night, phantoms trapped between the realms of the living and the dead. Fear began to gnaw at my sanity. How could I explain these apparitions? Were they the hallucinations of an exhausted mind, or was something more sinister at play? I questioned my own perception, doubting the very fabric of reality. Each sighting brought with it a palpable sense of unease, a tingling at the base of my spine. The faces of the ghostly figures were a haunting mosaic, a mix of sorrow, anger, and longing. Their eyes, empty voids that seemed to peer into the depths of my soul, held a profound sadness, as if they carried the weight of forgotten tragedies. I could almost hear their silent pleas, a yearning to be acknowledged, to find peace. But as their numbers grew, so did my unease. Shadows danced beneath the moonlight, twisting and contorting in eerie synchrony. They whispered on the wind, their voices carried on unseen currents, an incomprehensible chorus that sent shivers down my spine. I tried to focus on the road ahead, to shut out the phantoms that haunted the darkness. But they persisted, their ethereal forms stretching out towards me, reaching for a connection to the world of the living. It was as if they were trapped, caught in a perpetual limbo, desperate for release. As the night wore on, the apparitions became bolder, encroaching on the illuminated path cast by my headlights. They pressed against the invisible barrier that separated us, their ghostly fingers grazing the cold glass of the truck windows. Panic surged within me, and I could no longer ignore the chilling reality of their presence. In a desperate attempt to escape, I accelerated, pushing the truck to its limits. The engine roared, drowning out the anguished whispers that filled the night air. But no matter how fast I drove, the apparitions kept pace, their determination unyielding. My mind raced with questions. What did they want from me? Why had I become the focal point of their spectral pursuit? I could no longer ignore the weight of their presence, nor the undeniable truth that I was no longer alone on that desolate road. In the darkest hour, a realization struck me, a chilling revelation that sent shivers coursing through my veins. The apparitions were not mere phantoms, they were lost souls, trapped in a realm of perpetual torment. And by some cruel twist of fate, I had become entwined in their torment. As I braced myself for what lay ahead, the truck's headlights pierced the veil of darkness, illuminating the road ahead with an eerie glow. The apparitions had vanished, leaving behind an unsettling stillness in their wake. But deep within me, a sense of foreboding told me that their departure was not the end. With trembling hands, I reached for the radio dial, intent on finding solace in the familiar voices that once filled the airwaves. But as I turned it on, I was met with a cacophony of static, an otherworldly symphony that seemed to resonate with the spirits that had haunted me. From the static emerged whispers, fragmented voices carrying messages from beyond. They spoke of forgotten tragedies, of lives cut short and souls trapped in eternal torment. The voices grew louder, merging into a chorus of anguish that echoed through the cab, filling every crevice with their sorrowful resonance. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles turning white. Desperation and terror coursed through my veins. This was no mere coincidence or hallucination. I had unwittingly become a conduit for the tormented souls that lingered in the shadows of the night. In a last-ditch attempt to escape the ethereal grip that held me, I accelerated, my foot heavy on the gas pedal. The engine roared as the truck thundered down the desolate road, But no matter how fast I traveled, the haunting voices persisted, growing louder and more deranged. The road twisted and turned, the very landscape itself morphing into a twisted reflection of its former self. Familiar landmarks became distorted, their shapes contorted and grotesque. The once paved road crumbled beneath the weight of my tires, revealing a macabre path leading to an unknown destination. As the hours stretched on, my mind teetered on the precipice of madness. The apparitions reappeared, their ethereal forms now merging with the physical realm. They clawed at the windows, their ghostly fingers leaving smears of icy residue as they desperately tried to reach me. With every passing mile, my resolve wavered, my sanity slipping away like sand through my fingers. The radio continued to blare its haunting symphony, the voices growing louder, their words incomprehensible yet undeniably malevolent. In a moment of desperate clarity, I made a choice to surrender to the relentless darkness that consumed me. I closed my eyes, accepting my fate as the truck hurtled forward, hurtling towards an unseen precipice. The voices crescendoed, their torment merging with the thunderous roar of the engine. But just as I braced myself for the final descent, an otherworldly force seemed to halt the truck in its tracks. The cacophony of voices abruptly ceased, replaced by an eerie silence that hung in the air like a thick fog. I opened my eyes, my heart pounding in my chest, only to find myself back on the familiar road, untouched and unharmed. My body trembled with a mix of relief and lingering dread. The radio fell silent, the static dissipating into thin air. The spirits that had pursued me had vanished, leaving no trace of their presence. I had escaped the clutches of the supernatural, but the scars they had left on my psyche would forever remain. As I continued my journey, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had glimpsed a realm beyond our own, a dimension where the restless souls of the departed yearned for release. The memory of that night would forever haunt me, a constant reminder that the boundary between the living and the dead is a fragile veil easily breached by forces unseen. And so, as I drove into the night, my senses heightened and my soul forever altered, I vowed to remain vigilant. For I knew that the world I perceived was but a thin illusion, concealing the unfathomable horrors that lurked just beneath the surface, waiting for the next unsuspecting traveler to wander into their domain. Let's hop onto story number 2, but before I begin reading, make sure that you have subscribed to Mr. Scare for regular horror podcasts. It was a great Friday evening and I was on my final week shift. I gripped the steering wheel tightly as I continued down the dark and desolate highway. It was well past midnight, and the road stretched out before me, surrounded by an eerie silence. My tired eyes strained to stay focused, the monotonous hum of the engine lulling me into a sense of unease. That's when I saw it, a flicker of movement at the edge of my vision. I glanced out the side window, expecting to see a passing car, but there was nothing. Just the empty expanse of the night. I shook my head, chalking it up to exhaustion playing tricks on my mind. But as the miles rolled by, the flickers became more frequent, dancing on the periphery of my vision like elusive shadows. Unease settled in my chest, my heart pounding faster with each passing moment. I tried to shake off the growing sense of dread, focusing on the road ahead, but the paranormal phenomena continued to haunt me. Strange lights flashed in the distance, flickering like distant fires. Unearthly whispers seemed to carry on the wind, making the hair on the back of my neck stand on end. My rational mind urged me to ignore the unexplainable occurrences, to attribute them to fatigue or tricks of the light. But deep down, I knew something was not right. The dark stretch of highway seemed to hold secrets, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. As I pressed on, the phenomena grew bolder. Ghostly figures appeared at the roadside, their forms fleeting and ethereal. They beckoned me with twisted hands, their eyes filled with an otherworldly glow. Fear coiled in my gut, and I resisted the temptation to stop, to investigate. Instinct told me that danger lurked beyond their spectral facade. My truck rumbled along the road, its headlights piercing the darkness. Shadows danced in their beams, taking shape and distorting reality. The boundary between the physical and the supernatural blurred, and I found myself questioning my own sanity. Was I losing my mind? Were these apparitions mere figments of my imagination? But then, in the distance, I saw it, a figure standing in the middle of the road. My heart lodged in my throat as I slammed on the brakes, my truck skidding to a halt just inches away from the phantom form. It was a woman, her pale face contorted in agony, her eyes filled with sorrow. She reached out toward me, a desperate plea in her spectral gaze. My instinct screamed at me to flee, to put as much distance between myself and the paranormal as possible. But curiosity mingled with compassion, compelling me to roll down the window and listen to her anguished whispers. "Help me," she pleaded, her voice a haunting whisper in the night. "Release me from this eternal torment." My heart pounded in my chest as I watched her translucent form fade away into the darkness. The weight of her plea bore down on me. I sat frozen in my seat, my grip on the steering wheel tightening as the paranormal phenomena escalated. The spectral figures danced at the roadside, their haunting forms twisting and contorting in a macabre display. Their ghastly whispers filled the cabin, clawing at my sanity. Fear gripped my heart as the woman materialized in front of my truck. Her agonized expression pierced my soul, and her spectral touch sent a shiver down my spine. In desperation, I slammed my foot on the accelerator, intending to escape this nightmare, but the truck remained motionless. Panic welled up inside me as I realized I was trapped, ensnared in a sinister web of supernatural forces. The figures closed in, their malevolent energy suffocating me. I clutched at the steering wheel, my knuckles turning white, my breaths coming in shallow gasps. The woman's voice echoed through the cabin, her plea morphing into a chilling command. "Stay," she whispered, her voice laced with a malicious undertone. "Stay and suffer with us." A surge of terror overwhelmed me, threatening to consume my very being. I could feel their presence seeping into every crevice of the truck, their icy fingers tracing patterns along my skin. Desperation pushed me to try anything, and I reached for my phone, frantically dialing emergency services. But as I brought the phone to my ear, the signal dropped, plunging me into complete isolation. It was as if the paranormal forces had severed my connection to the outside world, leaving me at the mercy of the unexplainable. Sweat trickled down my forehead as I contemplated my options. The truck offered some semblance of protection, but I knew deep down that it wouldn't shield me forever. The supernatural forces were relentless, their intentions malevolent and cruel. I was just a pawn in their twisted game. With each passing moment, the figures drew closer, their ethereal forms pressing against the windows, their hollow eyes staring into my soul. Madness clawed at the edges of my mind, threatening to consume me. But amidst the chaos, a flicker of defiance ignited within me. Summoning every ounce of courage I had left, I shut my eyes and focused on my breath, attempting to block out the overwhelming presence that surrounded me. In the midst of the darkness, a realization surfaced. I had to confront them head-on, to face the horrors rather than cower in fear. Summoning my strength, I opened my eyes and locked gazes with the spectral woman. In that moment, the supernatural forces recoiled, their power waning. For some very weird reasons, the figures faded into the night, their ethereal forms dissipating like smoke in the wind. A heavy silence settled over the cabin, broken only by the sound of my pounding heart. I knew the danger wasn't completely gone, that the paranormal forces still lurked in the shadows, waiting for another opportunity to ensnare unsuspecting victims. But as I continued my journey down the desolate highway, I carried with me a newfound resilience. The road stretched out before me, its twists and turns a reminder of the darkness that could lurk just beyond the headlights. But I vowed to remain vigilant, to be ever watchful of the supernatural forces that sought to ensnare me. For I had survived the encounter, emerging from the clutches of the paranormal with an unwavering determination. And as the miles rolled by, I knew that my harrowing experience would forever serve as a reminder of the haunting depths that exist just beyond the edges of our reality. The engine hummed beneath me as my truck rumbled down the desolate highway, the darkness of the night surrounding me like a shroud. The road stretched endlessly before me, its faded yellow lines guiding me through the unknown. I glanced at the clock on the dashboard, noting the late hour. It was a routine delivery, just another job in a long line of countless miles. Little did I know that this journey would be like none other I had ever experienced. As I navigated the winding road, a heavy mist rolled in, swallowing the landscape and reducing visibility to a mere few feet. The familiar landmarks vanished into the swirling haze, leaving me disoriented and uneasy. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel, my knuckles turning white as I pressed on, relying solely on my instincts to guide me. It was then that I noticed a flicker of movement out of the corner of my eye. I peered into the thick fog, trying to make sense of the shadowy figure that seemed to be pacing me from the roadside. My heart quickened its rhythm as I realized that I was not alone on this desolate stretch of highway. I shook off the unease, attributing it to exhaustion and the tricks of the mist. But as the miles passed, the figure persisted, always just within reach of my peripheral vision. The shape seemed human, yet something about its movements was off, unnatural. A chill ran down my spine as I began to question my own sanity. Was this a mere hallucination brought on by fatigue, or was there something truly lurking in the mist? Doubt crept into my mind, but fear held me captive, keeping me glued to the driver's seat. My fingers clenched the steering wheel tighter as the road led me deeper into the heart of the unknown. The surroundings grew more eerie, the mist thickening to an impenetrable curtain. The headlights of my truck sliced through the fog, illuminating fleeting glimpses of dilapidated buildings, their windows shattered and long forgotten. As I passed through a town seemingly frozen in time, a sense of dread settled over me like a heavy fog. The deserted streets were lined with decaying storefronts and crumbling houses, their empty windows staring out like vacant eyes. Not a soul was in sight, but a foreboding presence hung in the air. I tried to rationalize, to convince myself that this was just an abandoned ghost town. Yet, the sound of footsteps echoed in my ears, their rhythm matching my own heartbeat. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end as I realized that the figure from before was still with me, haunting my every move. My mind raced, searching for answers, for an escape from this nightmare. But there was nowhere to run, no sanctuary to seek within the confines of my truck. I was trapped in this forsaken town, at the mercy of whatever sinister force lurked in the shadows. As the figure drew closer, its features began to take shape through the haze. A grotesque smile twisted its face, eyes glinting with a malevolence that sent a shiver down my spine. It moved with an unnatural grace, its presence exuding an otherworldly aura. I knew then that I had stumbled upon something beyond comprehension, something that defied the laws of nature. The realization washed over me like a wave, drowning me in terror. My only hope was to endure the torment that awaited me, to hold on to the flickering flame of survival within the confines of my truck. And so, with every ounce of courage I could muster, I pressed on, the unknown awaiting me with each passing mile. The road stretched endlessly before me, a dark path into the abyss. The figure continued its relentless pursuit, a shadowy specter determined to claim me as its own. In the solitude of my truck, I became a captive audience to the horrors that unfolded before me. The mist grew thicker, the darkness deeper, as I delved further into the heart of the unknown. There was no escape, no reprieve from the clutches of the enigmatic figure that danced at the edge of my vision. My mind teetered on the precipice of madness, the line between reality and nightmare blurring with each passing moment. The highway became a twisted labyrinth, a never-ending loop that kept me ensnared in its grip. I was a pawn in a macabre game, a player without control, forced to witness the grotesque spectacle that unfolded around me. As the night wore on, the figure's presence became more palpable, its influence seeping into every fiber of my being. Its ethereal whispers echoed through the cabin, a symphony of malevolent intent. My grip on sanity faltered, my mind on the verge of collapse. But still, I clung to that last sliver of hope, that flickering flame within my soul. I would not succumb, not without a fight. With every fiber of my being, I resisted the clutches of the unknown, determined to emerge from this nightmare unscathed. And so, with each passing mile, I forged ahead, my truck an island of refuge amidst a sea of darkness. The figure pursued relentlessly, its presence a constant reminder of the horrors that lurked just beyond the veil of perception. As dawn broke on the horizon, casting its golden light upon the world, the figure began to fade, its ethereal form dissipating into the morning mist. The weight on my shoulders lifted, the air filled with a newfound sense of liberation. I had survived the night, emerging from the clutches of the unknown. But the scars remained, etched deep within my soul. The road would forever be haunted by the memories of that night, a reminder of the terrors that lie hidden beneath the surface of our everyday lives. As I drove away from that desolate stretch of highway, I couldn't help but glance back one last time, the image of the figure forever imprinted in my mind. The unknown had tested me, challenged me, but I had endured. And though the scars may never fully heal, I knew that I had emerged stronger, more resilient. The road stretched out before me, an open invitation to the mysteries that lay ahead. And as I pressed on, I vowed to carry the memory of that fateful night, a testament to the indomitable spirit that resides within us all. I've been a truck driver for years, hauling all sorts of cargo across the vast expanse of America. But nothing could have prepared me for the job I took that fateful night, a delivery to an isolated location that would plunge me into a world of darkness and danger. As I maneuvered my truck through the winding roads, a sense of unease settled over me. The area seemed deserted, an eerie stillness hanging in the air. The GPS directed me to a desolate warehouse tucked away in the heart of nowhere. It was a place that didn't appear on any map, a clandestine operation hidden from prying eyes. My instincts told me to turn back, to abandon this mysterious delivery. But the allure of a hefty paycheck clouded my judgment, and curiosity got the better of me. Little did I know that my decision would lead me down a path of treachery and terror. The moment I pulled into the warehouse, a feeling of dread washed over me. The air was thick with tension, and I couldn't shake the sensation of being watched. Shadows danced ominously in the corners, as if they harbored secrets too dark to be revealed. As I unloaded the cargo from the back of the truck, I caught glimpses of something I shouldn't have seen. The boxes, labeled innocuously, concealed a sinister truth. The contents were not what they seemed, illegal and dangerous. Panic surged through my veins, but I couldn't afford to let fear paralyze me. I had to think fast. As I hopped back into the truck, ready to escape the clutches of this illicit operation, a sinister presence materialized before me. A figure emerged from the shadows, their face obscured by darkness and malice. The realization struck me like a bolt of lightning. This was no ordinary delivery. I had stumbled upon something far more sinister. The figure, their voice dripping with malevolence, demanded that I hand over the cargo. But I knew I couldn't comply. To do so would be to condemn myself to a life of guilt and regret. I clenched the steering wheel, my knuckles turning white, and made a split-second decision. I slammed my foot on the gas pedal, propelling the truck forward with a surge of adrenaline. Behind me, the figure roared in anger, their pursuit relentless. But I had one advantage, the truck. It was my fortress, my shield against the dangers that lurked outside. I navigated the treacherous roads with precision, my heart pounding in my chest, my every instinct screaming at me to escape. The road stretched on, a labyrinth of uncertainty. Desperation fueled my determination as I veered through tight turns, narrowly avoiding disaster. The headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating the horrors that sought to reclaim their illicit cargo. As the night wore on, the pursuit intensified. The figure and their cohorts closed in, their malevolent presence overwhelming. But I refused to yield. I knew the consequences of failure, of surrendering the cargo to those who would use it for nefarious purposes. With every twist and turn, my resolve grew stronger. The truck became an extension of myself, an impenetrable fortress against the encroaching darkness. The figure and their minions may have been relentless, but I was determined to outwit and outmaneuver them. Hours passed, but the pursuit showed no signs of abating. My body ached, my mind weary from the relentless chase. Yet, I couldn't afford to falter. I couldn't afford to let them catch up. Finally, as dawn broke on the horizon, a glimmer of hope flickered within me. The sight of a bustling city on the horizon brought a surge of relief. The figure and their accomplices faded into the distance, their malicious presence dissipating like morning mist. I pulled into a truck stop on the outskirts of the city, my heart still pounding in my chest. I knew I had narrowly escaped a fate worse than death. The cargo was secure, and I had fulfilled my duty to protect it. As I climbed out of the truck, I couldn't help but glance back, wondering if the figure still lingered in the shadows. But there was no trace of them, only the lingering memories of a nightmarish ordeal. I realized then that the job I had taken was no ordinary delivery. It was a test of my courage and resilience, a trial by fire that would forever alter my perception of the world. From that day forward, I vowed to be more cautious, to trust my instincts and steer clear of the murky depths that lurked in the darkness. As I walked away from the truck, the weight of the night's events settled upon my shoulders. The secrets I had uncovered would haunt me forever, a reminder of the darkness that dwelled just beneath the surface. And so, I continued my journey as a truck driver, forever changed by the horrors I had witnessed. The road stretched on, its endless expanse a reminder that danger could be found in the most unexpected places. But armed with newfound wisdom and the scars of a harrowing experience, I vowed to navigate the highways with a heightened sense of caution and a relentless determination to survive. I've always enjoyed the solitude of the open road, the rhythmic hum of the engine, and the endless stretch of highway before me. But on that fateful night, as I embarked on another long haul through the heartland of America, I stumbled upon something that shattered the tranquility I had come to cherish. It started innocently enough. I was scanning through the radio frequencies, searching for a station to keep me company in the dark hours of the night. That's when I stumbled upon it, a faint, mysterious signal that seemed to emerge from the ether. Curiosity piqued, I adjusted the dial until the sound came in clear. At first, it was a series of distorted static, like whispers carried by the wind. But as I tuned in further, the fragments of sound coalesced into chilling voices, desperate and haunting. Distress calls. Please help. The airwaves became a conduit for unspeakable terror. I couldn't tear myself away from the radio, captivated by the gravity of the messages that pierced the silence of the night. The voices revealed a horrifying truth: my surroundings were not what they seemed. The roads I had traveled countless times were now tainted with darkness. Each broadcast was a harrowing tale of horror, a missing person, a tragic accident, a mysterious disappearance. The details were disturbingly vivid, as if the voices reached out from the depths of despair to share their tortured stories. I listened, my heart heavy with empathy and fear. As the night wore on, the broadcasts grew more frequent, their urgency escalating. I could feel the weight of the unknown pressing upon me, a suffocating presence that crept into the recesses of my mind. It was as if I had stumbled into a parallel dimension, where the fabric of reality had frayed. Every mile I traveled only deepened the mystery. The landscape around me seemed distorted, the shadows more pronounced, and an unrelenting sense of dread clung to the air. But I dared not stop, for fear that the horror I had unwittingly stumbled upon would consume me too. As I continued down the road, the radio transmissions took on a more sinister tone. The voices became distorted, their words a cacophony of anguished screams and unearthly cries. It was as if the darkness itself was reaching out, trying to draw me into its macabre embrace. In the depths of the night, I glanced at the rearview mirror, and my blood ran cold. A figure stood at the edge of the road, shrouded in darkness. Its eyes burned with an otherworldly glow, fixated on me. I felt a primal fear surge through my veins, compelling me to push the accelerator to its limits. But no matter how fast I drove, the figure seemed to effortlessly keep pace. It was a relentless pursuer, an embodiment of the malevolent forces that had taken hold of the world around me. I was trapped in a nightmare, a pawn in a game where the rules were dictated by an unseen, nefarious power. The radio transmissions intensified, the voices merging into a symphony of madness. They echoed through the cabin, reverberating in my mind. The messages carried a dire warning: a dark presence had enveloped this realm, and I was merely a visitor caught in its clutches. In the darkest hour before dawn, I made a choice. With trembling hands, I switched off the radio, cutting off the stream of distress and despair. The silence that followed was deafening, an eerie stillness that permeated the air. But even without the voices, the truth remained: the road ahead was forever changed. The veil between worlds had been lifted, exposing the horrors that lurked beneath the surface. And though I continued my journey, forever haunted by the radio's unsettling revelations, I vowed to remain vigilant, for the darkness was always waiting, just beyond the edge of the headlights.